It's time for the Las Vegas Sportsline.
Money won is twice as sweet as money earned.
All right, here we go. It's the Friday edition of the Las Vegas Sportsline. We head into a busy weekend on the diamond. NHL just around the bend as the Stanley Cup Finals are set to get started on Monday. And the NBA will have a finals set after tomorrow because Toronto and Milwaukee heading back to Toronto. Well, we know. We might have a game 7. I beg your pardon. You know, that's Teddy Covers. I'm Dave Cokin. Kelly Stewart will be with us in a little bit. Actually, not a little bit. It'll be the bottom of the hour, where she usually is on Fridays. All right, Platinum's at the controls. And that was a Freudian slip of sorts just now. Because if you were on Twitter last night, after Toronto had gone into Milwaukee and beaten the Bucks, close game, but Toronto was the better team, you would think that this Game 6 is a mere formality at this point, and that the Raptors should be crowned as Eastern Conference champions now and get set to face the Golden State Warriors. And the first thing that strikes me about that, and it struck me immediately as I was scanning through Twitter, is that this is a game with a 2-point spread.
Yep.
And everybody, everybody likes Toronto. I mean, it's talking about the casual, not even gambling Twitter, but just the casual Twitter. Everybody says, "Oh, that's it. The Bucks are dead. Watch out."
Sure. I mean, from a betting perspective, we haven't seen that dichotomy. It looks much closer to a 50-50 split,
right?
At the current number of 2.5.
And this is where I get into raging arguments with these sites that are big on sharps versus squares.
Reverse line
you
movement.
Don't know what you're talking about. It's the worst possible advice. It really is some of the worst advice that you can find on Twitter. And I don't mean to condemn anybody else's style, but you are basically urging people to bet at less than the best number.
Because the only sharp money is going to come at the peak of the market.
That is such bad advice. You should be disqualified from ever giving advice, okay?
Well,
here's the thing, though, on the sharps versus squares, and as it applies to this game, at least if it's Long Beach State's playing Cal Poly in college basketball, there you might have a sharps versus squares dichotomy that at least is, we can focus on that, because the only people that are buying that are probably, I don't even know if you can, no, it actually wouldn't even apply to that. On a game like this, Milwaukee-Toronto Game 6, you're only talking about the betting market as far as sharp versus square. Charles Barkley won't have a bet on the game. I'll bet you Charles Barkley likes Toronto to win the game, though. He's Joe Public. And a lot of Joe Publics don't have any money on the game. They just have an opinion on the game.
Sure.
And those people are all going to be on Toronto tomorrow.
Yeah, but is that going to make you want to make a bet on Milwaukee? Is that a region?
No, but I'm just saying, word of caution, that to me is not, it's not a sharp versus square. It's a square versus square type of thing where I don't like being on the same side when, and it's not the betting market, when everybody just thinks this is going to be easy.
See, I'm much more concerned about what the markets are doing and what the markets are thinking. And if everybody likes something but the markets are saying something different, I don't mind being against the markets in that regard.
No, neither do I.
I mean,
don't want to be with the market either.
Sure. It's there's always, it's like, well, you want to be getting the best of the number. Fact. Okay, on a consistent basis, you need to be getting the best of the number, or you're not going to be winning.
Especially when it's point spread as opposed to money line. You can lay an extra dime or 20 cents on a money line. Okay. But boy, in a basketball or football game, a point can be a big deal. And over the long haul, it is a big deal.
Sure. If you're consistently getting the worst of it, it's very difficult to make money betting on sports. But, so during football season, every Sunday I put out, my take on today's sharp square divide for the NFL. And I think in the NFL, it's really easy to, not easy to figure out, but it's fairly easy to figure out who the public is on.
Right.
And it's fairly easy to see who the sharps are on. And there are legitimate opinions. Yes, the public are on these teams. Yes, there is a fair bit of wise guy money on these teams at these prices. For the other sports?
Well, and here's the thing,
not as much.
Even in the NFL, it's fun. I think pros versus shows, sharps versus squares is fun on Sundays. So if you do yours and Mitch Morse comes on and says, here's what the sharps versus squares are at the Superbook, because he's always there.
Sure, exactly, yeah. I always retweet that. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
But, and this is I'm just so adamant about this. If you let's say the Browns from the past couple of not so much this past year, but in past years.
Sure.
Okay.
The Sharks were betting the Browns every week.
Okay, and
the public was betting against the Browns every week.
But the point was, on Sundays, you'd have people jumping on the Browns because the Sharps are on that side, and they'd be doing it at like 2 points worse than the Sharps did. You deserve to lose when you do something that stupid. And that's where I get upset with, and I'm not going to mention their names because they're in business to make money, and I'm not trying to take anybody's livelihood away, but it's bad advice that they're offering.
Well, and also the concept of, okay, this is my rationale for making a wager because other people don't like that wager or do like that wager. Yeah. That's not a good rationale. You know, if you're making a case, and what we do, I mean, are you strictly a numbers guy, or are you kind of build a case, or as you're
in college football, I'm very much into analysis. I mean, I know the personnel, and I do matchups, and
sure.
So it may not be a numbers thing where it's like, boy, this team really matches up well with this team, and the number doesn't really matter.
So as you're building a case for a team, you can use something like that in your analysis as part of the case.
It writes better than it plays.
Exactly. You cannot say this is why I'm making this bet is because the public's. I'm just
right.
It's not, and it's not going to win.
No, but it's amazing how many. And a lot of people in our business will look at those numbers, and that's their reason for making a play. They really don't have another reason for making a play, and that to me is not good handicapping.
That's why people listen to this show.
I hope so. Not to say that we're the be-all and end-all of everything.
No,
we
give it. There's
too,
analysis. There's not, And
there's a recognition, I think, among the two of us of maximizing your chances of win by heeding advice that it's better to take a good number than a bad number. And if you play beat-up lines, you're going to lose. Excuse me.
Burp away, baby. Burp away.
I ate Mexican for lunch. It was delicious, too.
The truth of it is, the difference between winning and losing is oftentimes razor thin.
It is.
And when you talk about being on the right side of some of these games or being on the wrong side, having an extra point or two does matter. That's why we always promote the sponsors, and we talk about get the app and get the app, and you just have them on your phone. It's easy enough to do. So it's not something that's just for the sponsor. It's legitimately sound advice, I believe.
So let's go back to last night and talk about what took place in Milwaukee as the Toronto Raptors go in and get a critical Game 5 win. And an old axiom, and this one is a truism, Game 5 winner in a 2-2 series usually wins the series. Simple math, but it's more than the simple math. It really is a big momentum changer. There's so much less pressure on the team that goes up 3-2. They've got 2 more shots, and one of them is going to be at home, and that is a huge mental advantage for Toronto at this point.
Yes and no. I mean, if you're the Raptors and you lose Game 6 at home,
well, yeah, but
whatever mental advantage you had is now gone.
But you'd still have another shot.
Yes.
Milwaukee has no more chances, and now they have to go win on the road.
Sure, and it's a Bucks team that is now facing legitimately the first real adversity they faced this entire season.
First 3-game losing streak of the entire year.
They only had 2 2-game losing streaks. Or no, 1 2-game losing streak. They had been 23-1 off a loss.
They had been money in the bank off a loss, and a lot of people, unfortunately, for them.
Myself included. I wrote it, and it's a kind of streak that I had, and I absolutely felt like I had to ride, because it's made me enough money over the year that you had to, you got to ride it.
And going
Bucks
in,
off a loss.
I think
and
going
Bucks
in,
off 2 losses.
You had to feel good about your chances going in because Bucks have been very good. I think you can argue in the first 4 games of the series, you make a decent argument they were the better team anyway. But now everything changes. And here's the thing, though. I by no means. I think Milwaukee can bounce back from that last night.
I think they can, too. I mean, when we look at what happened last night, there were a couple of things that really stood out. Because remember, this is a tie game with 2-3 minutes to go, 2.5 minutes to go.
Flip.
It's
even a coin. It's a coin flip coming down inside the last 30 seconds when I don't know what Milwaukee decided to do with that possession where it ends up going off Brogdon's foot. I mean, that was a really bad possession. Still might have won the game had they not screwed up there.
Bledsoe had a bad fourth quarter.
Yeah, he did.
And that, could be a problem moving forward because Lowry's not having bad fourth quarters,
No, this is the best playoff Lowry's ever had.
Without a doubt. And I mean, there have been two blowouts in the series. Milwaukee had their game 2, Toronto had their game 4, and there have been 3 games where who played better or less worse. I think the game 3, the double overtime, was just who played less worse down the stretch to win that one. But the Bucks dominated down the stretch in game 1, and Toronto was absolutely the better team down the stretch last night, and their superstar played like Kawhi was unbelievable. Last
injured
night.
Or not, he's just so good.
And on both ends, and with Kawhi and Van Vliet. I mean, Van Vliet, who has been nightmarish this postseason. He had a kid on Monday, and then he's come out and had the 2 best games of the postseason, and hitting 7 and 9 from 3, and those were big threes again and again. The Bucks would have some momentum, and Van Vliet would hit a 3, and it would just.
And the thing is, they had to repaint the rim after games because he had been just bricking everything.
Oh, he was like 3 of 27, or I think worse than that even from 3-point range. I mean, he'd been just awful in the last 2 series, but not the last 2 games. All that being said, you see the quotes from Milwaukee. Giannis say, "Hey, we're not quitting. We're coming to play tomorrow night." And you say that it takes the pressure off Toronto. I honestly think it puts the pressure on Toronto. You better close it out at home. They know.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you this.
It's equal pressure.
In terms of the expectations, and this goes back to what I said at the top of the conversation, in terms of what are now the expectations, the pressure is on the Raptors. They're expected to win this basketball game by at least the majority of the public.
Sure, and I was doing a podcast earlier today. Like, this is the biggest game in the history of the Raptors franchise. Yeah, maybe it is, but the reason this is the biggest game in the history of the Raptors franchise is because every time the Raptors are in a big game like this one, every previous biggest game, they've lost.
Yeah.
That's what it's been like in Toronto. But if Lowry outplays Bledsoe in the fourth quarter again, the Raptors are going to win Game 6 and close out this series. To me, that's the key matchup to watch for early on in that ballgame.
Before we head to the Diamonds, and we'll keep you updated on the Cubs and Reds, which is a 4-4 game right now. The Reds have caught up, and the Cubs, however, have a threat going with 2 on, nobody out in the bottom of whatever is the 6th inning?
8th.
8th inning. Okay.
Bottom 8.
My eyes from this distance are
2 on, 2
fantastic. Oh, 2 on, 2 out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. Before we talked about tonight's baseball, we have not talked about the hiring of Juwan Howard at your alma mater, University of Michigan. He is now the head basketball coach. What do you think?
So I have to say that I'm personally biased because I knew Juwan both as a student and then I saw him again early on when he was in Washington.
From a character standpoint, it basically doesn't get any better than Juwan
He's as
Howard.
good a human being as I've ever met.
Yep.
Has he paid his dues in the coaching world? Absolutely. He's been an assistant in Miami for years. And really the last 5 years around the NBA, Juwan Howard was the coach on the bench, and he's a guy that you honestly thought he'd be an NBA head coach before he'd be a Michigan head coach. Right. But the love for the Wolverines is still there, even after they took the banners down. So, I think there's a lot of love for Juwan Howard. I think it's going to be, it's big shoes to replace Beilein. And when we think about where the Wolverines program has been over the last, half dozen years, twice in the national title game. But I think he'll be able to recruit, and I think he'll be able to coach, and I expect success.
I think he might recruit a higher level of player.
Michigan sent a lot of talent to the NBA.
Oh, yeah. But I'm talking. I'm not saying Michigan wasn't a national recruiting force, but now I think Michigan's going to be playing at the same level as Duke and Kentucky and schools like that for the superstar high school players. I mean, Juwan Howard's name is going to carry a lot of clout, and then you add in a storied program like Michigan. It's going to be tough to out-recruit him.
That'd be nice. But again, I'm no fan of, my love for Michigan ended the day that, when they took the banners down. The Fab Five was the last team that I loved.
Yep.
And when they took those banners down, I cannot forgive, voluntarily. Remember, they did that, self, and it was on garbage. It was on garbage charges, the whole thing, whatever. I don't even want to go there. I'll rant for an hour.
You want to hear a rant?
Yeah, no.
You want to hear the movie Hoop Dreams, the documentary?
Yeah, it's probably 20. How long? I saw it when it came out. I think.
It's a phenomenal documentary.
Mm.
Juwan Howard's kind of got little cameos in there as a high school player. Oh, God, are we getting old? And with that, we will head to the Diamonds for tonight's MJ Christensen 4 at 4.
1,
2, 3 into the 4.
Put them fours up. Put the fours up, I said. Do it right now.
Tonight's action is just around the bend, and the guys want to get your night off to a great start.
4.
It's the Las Vegas Sports Line's 4 at